Okay, so let's try this again. I actually recorded the 2 videos already, and when I checked them, the sound was not there, so I now have to re-record them. Okay, let's get started. So I am continuing with my explorations of the tools and materials that I got at Creativeworld, Paperworld 2024. And I went onto the Royal Talens stand at Creativeworld, and I've known the guys at Royal Talens for absolute ages. I have a great relationship with them. Royal Talens EU and UK, they distribute Sakura products here in the EU and in the UK, and they're brilliant. They have lots of other products as well, which I will get into in a later video, because I just need to focus on two new products they have from the Pigma Micron range. So these are the 2 new products. One is a light gray and one is a sort of medium to dark gray. I initially thought the dark gray was a black, but it isn't, because I do actually have a jar of their black microns, which are really wonderful to work with. So I'm very excited to show you. I was going to say to test, but I've already I've already done the tests. So I'm basically refilming this because I really enjoyed doing the previous videos. And I think it's great for you to see how they work. So I will be using my lining template and a Bee and Fang marker pad. I'm going to rule up with the lining template, and I've already done this before, so so this is going to come a little bit easier. Right. So here is the Bee and Fang marker pad, the PAScribe lining template, and the 2 microns in the mid to dark gray and the pale gray. So I'm not going to pin the template in place, but what I am going to do is I am going to get this light out of the way. I am going to abut it to the base of the pad, and I'm just going to rule up a series of lines, top and bottom. Of course, the great thing about the template is, because it's so thick, it doesn't shift when you're ruling lines, and it really does keep the lines nice and parallel. So I'm going to repeat this 3mm pattern by looking for the top of the cut and the bottom of that line. And you can see that sort of 3 and 6. I'm going to do that once again to rule up a nice even page of 3mm. Notice I'm sort of holding the side of the pad, also wanting to line up template lines and pad. There we have a nice block of 3mm lines. Excellent. Now I want to add 52 on there. So I'm going to look for the 52 here, 52 top, 52 for the side. You can see that there's a big line on that 50. I'm going to get that line horizontal up here, and I'm going to get it vertical on there. Every other one by just finding the line, 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 There we go. Nice even batch of it out of the way. So that's given us some nice even 3mm lines. Now I am going to, so those are the microns there, away. So you have a brush, 10, 0.5 and 0.1. So you have that in both of them. So this is the pale gray. I'm going to put this side. So what I learned from doing this is when you put them down, put them facing you this way so you can see what they are. So putting those up there, going to take, so this is the mid to dark gray. A really lovely, it's a really lovely color. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work with these together so you can see what they look like. Now I know the 0.1 is nice and fine. Let's start with the dark one. And this works really well at 3mm. Actually, I need to turn this page more. Camera. It's quite a nice fine liner. It's a really lovely width. That's the 0.1. This is 5. The 5 works really well at 3 as well. And this is the 1mm, which works much better at. So quite a nice sort of thick size to work with writing. But let's look at the lighter color. This is this is the lighter gray. Really beautiful and pale. 5. And this 1. Because I'm using these as writing tools, if you wanted to use them for lettering, obviously you can do that. And because that it's sort of two-tone color, get the 1 hood. We could use the light gray and the dark gray. So if you're doing some hand lettering, hood, light gray on one side, and use the dark gray on the other. Rather than drawing it out. I mean, obviously, if you were trying to do this, doing some folk calligraphy, you'll want to draw that out. I'm looking at these little, you'd want this, that, this, that. So I tend not to use pencils, draw things out. You know, lots of people write out the calligraphy first and they write over it, and write over the pencil in something else. I tend not to do that because sometimes you can't get rid of the pencil marks. That sometimes damages the ink on top of it. So, doing it this way, it requires you to have a little bit of a more firmer grasp on the script, but that's not such a bad thing. Where are we at? So these are the dark ones and the light ones. Now, there is a brush in the set. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how this brush works. So when I put the brush down, like so, that actually tells me what the nib width of this brush is. Now, I would not want to do this. If I did that at a steep angle, which most people do that, it would damage the brush. I really don't want the letters to be bigger than that, and that means this is probably my X height. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 3 millimeters high. So that's 12 or 15. You can either get or now I'm really trying not to press. If I take this up to 80, I kind of feel that it's much more comfortable for me to write in. So here I've had to really control it. Here I still had to control it, but here size of the brush allows me to work at this scale. So that's an X height of 18 millimeters. Now, some of the other possibilities are you can take these two brush pens and you can work together. So I'm going to work inside of the line. I can work on the inside broad to add a drop shadow, or I can work directly on the paper itself. Now, it's up to you which one you choose to do. I tend to do this more than this because this makes the letter bigger. And sometimes there isn't enough internal space between the lines. Add a shadow on the page rather than adding it on the letter. And one of the things I learned about the tools doing this kind of work is the brush pens work really well for deposition. I'm going to go over the light one with the light one. I'm going to add another bit on top of it. That has a little bit more synergy with what I've written initially. I'm not using two different grays here. Here I'm using two different grays. I mean, yes, they're the same brand, but here it's just a matter of increased deposition of pigmentation. Now, when I use these tools, when I use brush pens, I tend to be very careful with how I use them. I'm generally writing with them. You won't see me sort of using them like this. There's a differential deposition there. So if you're going to do that kind of thing, you really want to stay sort of just overlapping them. And look, there again is that differential deposition. I'm going to show you a letter that's really quite nice with it. Do this, this. Right? Now I'm going to take the same brush pen I've used, which is light gray. I'm going to halve that line. What it is. And I'm going to take a darker brush pen. add that in on the. Oh, once you start to understand how these tools work, remember the flourish extensions need to be less deposition. And we can come in and really start to back when we can. Now, if you really wanted to play with this, but sort of, I would suggest you get maybe the 5, 1, not the 1, 0.1, and go into the corner. Little bit of darkness still. Bring that out. So there is so much that is possible with these tools. When the guys at Royal Talens said, "Oh, we have these in gray now," I sort of thought, yeah, but the black's quite good. And then when I started sort of looking at it and thinking, oh, but I love monochromatic painting. There's a technique called grisaille, which is excuse me, which is painting in shades of gray. And and the problem with this kind of technique is you have to make the grays up. Here, you have a range of fine liners from 0.1, 0.1, 0.5, and 1. And you have these brush in this mid-gray and the light gray. There's a lot more scope. There are obviously other things that you can do with them, which I will do in a much longer video, which will probably just live on YouTube rather than doing some big long video here on so that you can see the different ways in which these work. So I hope you enjoyed that demonstration with the new Sakura Pigma Micron fineliner and brush pen in mid gray and light gray.